About 6 years ago, my friends and I decided to drive from Chicago to Denver for a hiking trip. We thought it would be fun to take the scenic route through the Midwest, so we opted for the back roads rather than the interstate. It was late October, and we were hoping to enjoy some fall scenery on the way. We left in the late afternoon, aiming to stop somewhere in Nebraska for the night. The first few hours of the drive were uneventful. Just endless fields, small towns, and the occasional gas station. As the sun set, we realized we were in the middle of nowhere. There weren't any hotels nearby, and our GPS kept glitching, making it hard to figure out where we were. After a while, we decided to pull over at a rest stop we spotted along the road. It was one of those small, rundown rest areas with just a couple of vending machines, an old bathroom, and a few picnic tables. The place looked deserted, and the only light came from a single, flickering bulb above the restrooms. We were all tired, so we figured we'd take a break, stretch our legs, and check the map. As we got out of the car, I noticed a man standing near the restroom building. He was tall, wearing a dirty jacket, and just staring at us. At first I thought he was just a traveler like us, but something about the way he stood there, motionless, made my stomach twist. He didn't move, didn't even acknowledge us, just stood there, facing our car. "Let's not stay here too long," I muttered to my friends. They agreed, clearly picking up on the same vibe I was getting. My friend Mike offered to check the bathroom, and as he walked over, the man didn't take his eyes off him. Mike came back a few minutes later, shaking his head. "Bathroom's gross, and there's no signal here. We should just keep driving." We all nodded in agreement and started heading back to the car. But when we turned around, the man was gone. There wasn't anywhere for him to go. No other cars, no nearby buildings. Just an empty field stretching out into the darkness. We piled back into the car, and my friend Jess turned the key to start it. Nothing. The engine wouldn't turn over. The battery wasn't dead. The lights and radio were still working, but the car just wouldn't start. Panic started to set in. I checked my phone. No signal. Mike tried his. Nothing. Jess tried turning the key again, but the car remained silent. That's when we saw him. The man was standing just behind the restrooms, barely visible in the dim light. He was closer now, watching us from the shadows. My heart raced, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. It felt like he was waiting for something. "Let's get out of here," Jess whispered, her voice shaking. "Now." Mike and I jumped out of the car and popped the hood, hoping it was a simple fix. But we had no idea what we were looking for. I kept glancing back toward the restrooms, expecting the man to come closer, but he didn't move. He just stood there, watching. After a few minutes, Jess tried the engine again. This time, it sputtered to life. We didn't waste a second. Mike slammed the hood, and we all jumped back in the car, peeling out of the rest stop without looking back. As we sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The man had stepped out from behind the building and was standing in the middle of the parking lot, watching us drive away. His face was completely blank, like he wasn't even real. We didn't stop again until we reached a gas station an hour later. Even then, none of us could shake the feeling that we'd narrowly escaped something bad. We talked about it later, trying to rationalize what had happened. Maybe the car trouble was just a coincidence. Maybe the man was just some drifter passing through. But deep down, we all knew something was wrong about that night. It felt like we weren't supposed to be there, like we'd wandered into a place we didn't belong. To this day, none of us can explain what we saw or why the car suddenly started working again. But I know one thing. I'll never stop at a deserted rest stop again, no matter how tired I am. This happened to me a few years ago during a solo road trip. I was driving through a remote part of northern Idaho, heading to meet up with some friends for a weekend getaway. The area was rugged. Forests, mountains, and long, stretches of highway, with nothing around for miles. It was late afternoon, and I was about 2 hours from my destination. My GPS had me on a winding back road, and I hadn't seen another car in at least 45 minutes. I was enjoying the quiet when, out of nowhere, I saw an old beat-up pickup truck pull up behind me. The truck wasn't tailgating, but it was definitely too close for comfort. I figured the driver would pass me, but they didn't. Instead, they just stayed behind. No matter how much I sped up or slowed down, I started to get a bad feeling. I kept checking my rearview mirror, and every time I did, the truck was right there. Never too close, but never far enough to relax. Something about the way they were driving seemed deliberate. Finally, I came up to a small town. Relieved, I pulled into the first gas station I saw. The truck drove past me without stopping, and I watched as it disappeared down the road. I filled up the tank and grabbed a coffee, trying to shake off the unease. As I got back in the car, I told myself I was just overreacting. It was probably just a coincidence, right? Still, I couldn't shake the bad feeling in my gut. I got back on the highway and continued toward my destination, trying to relax, but about 20 minutes later, I saw it. The same pickup truck, parked on the side of the road, facing the opposite direction. The driver had clearly been waiting. As soon as I passed, the truck pulled out behind me again. My heart started racing. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. Whoever was driving that truck was following me. I didn't know why, and I didn't want to find out. I tried to stay calm, driving steadily as my mind raced through my options. I was still at least an hour away from my destination, and there were no towns, no rest stops, nothing between here and there. The truck stayed behind me, matching my speed, never coming too close, but never falling far behind. It was almost like they were toying with me. Then I saw a sign for a scenic lookout up ahead. Without thinking, I made a sharp turn into the lot. The truck zoomed past, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. I parked the car and sat there trying to catch my breath. The lookout was deserted, just a small clearing with a view of the mountains and some picnic tables. I grabbed my phone, ready to call someone. Anyone. But of course, I had no signal. That's when I saw it. The truck had turned around and was slowly pulling into the lot. I didn't wait. I threw the car in reverse and sped back onto the road, praying the truck wouldn't follow. I looked in the rearview mirror, heart pounding, expecting to see the headlights right behind me. But they didn't come. The truck stayed in the lot, just sitting there, engine idling. I don't know what they wanted or why they were following me, but I've never driven faster in my life. I didn't stop again until I reached my destination. I never told my friends what happened. I didn't want to freak them out. But I've never been so sure that someone meant me harm. To this day, I can't stop wondering what would have happened if I hadn't turned off the road, or if they had followed me that last time. I don't think I'll ever drive those back roads alone again. A couple of years ago, I was driving through rural Indiana late at night. I was on my way to visit my cousin and had been on the road for about 6 hours. The highway was dead, and I was starting to feel the weight of exhaustion hit me. That's when I saw a sign for a rest area up ahead. Relieved, I figured I'd pull over for a quick break, stretch my legs, and maybe grab a snack from the vending machines. When I pulled into the rest area, it was almost completely deserted. There were 2 trucks parked on the far side, their drivers presumably sleeping inside, and a single car parked near the restroom building. I didn't think much of it, but as I got out of my car, I noticed the car's windows were fogged up, like someone had been sitting in there for a while. I quickly used the bathroom, and when I came out, I noticed something strange. The car was still there, But now the driver's door was slightly open, just a crack. There was no sign of anyone around. I stood there for a moment, staring at the car, feeling the unease creep up my spine. Something wasn't right. As I started walking back to my car, I heard a faint voice. I couldn't tell where it was coming from, but it was soft, almost like a whisper. "Hey, can you help me?" The voice was coming from near the car. Against my better judgment, I took a few steps closer. A woman's voice called out again, this time a little louder. "Please, I need help." I felt my heart race, but I kept moving, drawn to the sound. As I approached the car, I noticed that there was something off about the way the voice sounded. Too calm, too rehearsed. My gut was screaming at me to get out of there. I stopped a few feet from the car, peering into the slightly open door, when I saw something that made my blood run cold. There was no one inside the car, just a small tape recorder sitting on the driver's seat, playing the same message on a loop. "Please, I need help." I backed away, heart pounding, just as I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't look back. I ran straight to my car, jumped in, and sped out of there as fast as I could. As I drove away, I saw someone step out from behind the restroom building, watching me leave. To this day, I don't know who set the trap or what they had planned, but I'll never stop at a rest area alone at night again. It was late October, and my friend Jeff and I were driving through the back roads of West Virginia. We had just finished a camping trip in the Appalachian Mountains, and the plan was to drive straight through the night to get back home to Ohio. We thought it would be easy, just a long stretch of road, a couple of energy drinks, and some good music to keep us going. Everything was fine until we took a wrong turn somewhere near the Virginia border. Our GPS lost signal, and we ended up on an unfamiliar stretch of highway that looked like it hadn't been used in years. No streetlights, no houses, just endless woods on either side of us. It was around 11 p.m. when we realized we were low on gas. Jeff tried to stay calm, but I could see the tension in his grip on the steering wheel. We hadn't passed a gas station in miles, and there didn't seem to be one anywhere near. After what felt like forever, we saw a sign. "Rest stop ahead, 1 mile." It was old and faded, but it was something. We agreed to stop, figuring we could at least stretch our legs and get our bearings. The rest stop wasn't much to look at. A couple of picnic tables, a small restroom building, and a vending machine that looked like it hadn't worked in years. But what really caught our attention was the pickup truck parked at the far end of the lot. Its lights were off, but the hood was still warm, like it hadn't been there long. "Think someone's inside?" Jeff asked, nodding toward the truck. "I don't know, man. Let's just be quick," I replied, trying not to sound as nervous as I felt. We parked on the opposite side of the lot, near the restrooms. I got out to stretch while Jeff checked the map on his phone, still hoping for a signal. As I stood there, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The woods felt too quiet, too still, like they were holding their breath. That's when I saw him. A man, standing just at the edge of the woods, near the back of the rest stop. He was holding a flashlight. The beam pointed toward the ground, but he wasn't moving. Just standing there, staring at us. "Jeff," I whispered, trying to get his attention without taking my eyes off the man. "Look over there." Jeff looked up, squinting into the darkness. "What the hell?" The man didn't move. He just kept standing there, the flashlight beam flickering slightly as it cast a pale glow on the ground. "Maybe he's broken down," Jeff suggested, though his voice didn't sound convinced. "Let's just leave," I said, heading back to the car. Before we could get in, the man started walking toward us. Slow, deliberate steps, the flashlight still pointed at the ground. My heart was pounding in my chest. Something about him felt off, like he was out of place, like he didn't belong there. "Excuse me," the man called out, his voice low and gravelly. Can you help me with my truck? Jeff froze, one hand on the car door. What's wrong with it? The man stopped walking, standing about 10 feet away now. His face was still mostly in shadow, but I could see enough to know I didn't want to get any closer. His skin was pale, almost sickly, and his eyes looked wrong. They were too wide, like he was trying too hard to appear calm. "Battery's dead," he said. "I just need a jump." I didn't want to be rude, but every instinct in my body was screaming to get out of there. "Sorry, we don't have cables," I lied, hoping he'd take the hint and leave us alone. He didn't move, just stood there, staring at us with those wide eyes. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice dripping with something I couldn't quite place, something sinister. "I think you can help me." That was it for me. "Jeff, get in the car," I said, my voice shaking. Jeff didn't need to be told twice. We both jumped in, and he floored it out of there. As we sped out of the lot, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The man was still standing there, watching us, his flashlight beam flickering in the darkness. We drove for another hour, not saying a word. Neither of us wanted to admit how scared we'd been, but we didn't stop until we found a gas station in a small town. When we finally got home, I tried looking up that rest stop, just to see if it was a known place or if anyone had reported anything strange there before. But as far as I could tell, it didn't exist. There was no mention of a rest stop on that stretch of road, no record of it at all. I don't know who that man was or what he really wanted, but I'll never forget the way he stared at us, like he was waiting for something we weren't about to give him.